The Louvre in Paris is no longer the biggest museum in the world. It's recently dethroned by a museum being built 3,000 kilometers away. This museum will showcase artifacts as old as 5,000 years, dating back to the Greek and Roman prehistoric times. And some of the expected items on display have never been seen by the public before. With a budget of $1 billion and a construction that took nearly 22 years to complete, this project is ready for its grand opening. If you haven't guessed it, we are talking about the Grand Egyptian Museum located on the famous Giza Plateau. And when we use the word grand, we mean it. Spanning over 50 hectares, this museum massively outweighs the Louvre in Paris and the State Hermitage Museum in Russia. The Grand Egyptian Museum will showcase 100,000 priceless artifacts, including never-before-seen treasures from King Tut's tomb. This makes it one of the most anticipated openings of the year 2024. What does this Grand Museum have in store for us? Will it outshine its predecessor, the 100-year-old Egyptian Museum in Cairo? And most importantly, was the 22-year wait worth it? Let's find out. This is the Giza Plateau. It's a huge swath of desert, flanked by a heavy population on its eastern side. The designers were particular about not destroying the plateau's original shape. That's why the gem is carefully located within the boundary of the plateau. Its diamond-shaped footprint allows it to sit comfortably on the edge without violating the border. The museum is strategically placed just 2 kilometers away from the famous Pyramids of Giza. Tourists can now travel from the museum to the pyramids in under 10 minutes. This is a massive upgrade over the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square, which is a 25 to 30-minute drive from this spot. Upon arrival, visitors are greeted with a white stone facade with a triangular opening in the middle. Its sides are lined with tiny symbols and imagery carved in golden ink. The facade is made from alabaster, the same stone that is used in Greek statues. So you can already tell the level of sophistication that went into this project. In the atrium, there's a small patch with running water across tiny hieroglyphs. It's tiny details like these that make this museum so special. Directly opposite the facade is a 3,500-year-old obelisk associated with Ramses II. The obelisk was first discovered in 1883, where it was broken into 2 halves. Both pieces were later rejoined and erected on this 4-legged pedestal. At the base of the obelisk, there are cartouches of Ramses II inscribed by the ancient Egyptians. Tourists can walk directly beneath the obelisk and see these never-before-seen details. The pedestal itself is covered with the word Egypt written in different languages. Throughout the museum, the design team included subtle details that pay tribute to the iconic Pyramids of Giza. 3 straight lines run through the roof, each intersecting with one pyramid in its background. Looking at the museum, triangles appear to be the favorite shape of the designers. Even the base footprint of the whole museum is a collection of several triangles merged. Once you enter the grand lobby, a 30-foot statue of Ramses is there to greet you. Weighing almost 80 tons, this 3,000-year-old marvel was the first artifact to be placed in the museum. So you can say that the rest of the museum is built around it. It's so big that its height even exceeds a traditional 2-story house. That's why it had to be transferred like this. For 50 years, this statue was displayed at the Cairo railway station on top of a fountain. Then President Hosni Mubarak ordered the statue to be relocated to the future site of the Grand Museum in 2006. This was several years before any construction had even started. Before we answer this, if you liked the video so far, kindly take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We bring the latest news in the construction industry with 2 new videos each week. Enough with promotion, let's return to our museum. Being a museum, GEM is tasked with representing Egypt's glorious past to the world. The Grand Egyptian Museum will have all the modern perks with an ancient touch. It will include 24,000 square meters of permanent exhibition space, a children's museum, 3D cinema, conference rooms, and a large conservation center. The Children's Museum will include 6 halls filled with pyramid models, replicas of significant artifacts like the Mask of Tutankhamun, and statues of notable figures such as Ramses II. A 45-minute guided tour is available for kids aged 6 to 12 in both Arabic and English. VR headsets will be available for tourists to step into virtual reconstructions of ancient sites and tombs. If you don't enjoy walking in a group or hearing long lectures from your guide, there's also a self-tour option. The museum offers an app that can connect seamlessly with your phone. So you can point your phone at a specific artifact and be able to see animations, hear stories, or learn more about the object's history. This approach provides deeper insights into the artifacts beyond traditional displays. Another centerpiece of the museum is the Grand Staircase. The Grand Staircase is designed as a vertical sculpture gallery and is arranged into 4 thematic sections. The first section is called the Royal Image. It showcases early pharaohs like Hatshepsut, Amenemhat IV, etc., and how they chose to be depicted in a statue form. The next section is dedicated to the temples of the gods. In ancient Egypt, kings used to build grand temples and monuments to prove their devotion to God. That's why you will see various columns, sphinxes, and temple elements on this level. The staircase then transitions to the third section titled King and Gods. This section deals with the relationship between these two. Pharaohs or kings were considered as intermediaries between the gods and the people. Here you will find statues of kings depicted alongside their gods. The last section is Eternity, and as the name suggests, this level represents the death of pharaohs. It features beautiful stone sarcophagi in Egyptian tombs. The staircase concludes with a breathtaking view of the pyramids at the far end. As of September 2024, only the grand lobby and the staircase is accessible to the public. You can also book a guided tour for just $6 to $12 depending on the day of the week. Judging by the aesthetic of GM, a project like this couldn't have come cheap. To this date, nearly $1 billion have been spent. Nearly 75% of this funding is coming from Japan. The Bank of Japan for International Cooperation has provided 2 loans totaling $800 million. The rest of the cost is borne by the Egyptian government and private donors. Interestingly, this museum's history is as dramatic as its cost. GEM was first envisioned in 1992 by former President Hosni Mubarak. The goal was to replace the current Egyptian museum with a more modern facility to house the nation's treasures. The Egyptian Museum was opened in downtown Cairo in 1902. Despite its vintage style, the building lacks sufficient space to house its 170,000 artifacts. On the other hand, GEM's location on the barren Giza Plateau allows for a controlled environment. It also had enough capacity to feature state-of-the-art facilities like VR experiences, a 3D movie theater, and dedicated conservation labs. Such innovations weren't possible at the Cairo Museum. In 2002, a competition was announced for the new museum's design. The response was beyond overwhelming. The organizers received 1,500 entries from 82 countries, making it the second largest architectural competition in history. The winner was a design firm from Ireland called Hennigan Ping Architects. In 2007, Egypt secured the much-needed financing from Japan. By now, GEM had everything to kickstart: money, land, and the right team. Yet construction couldn't start until 5 years later. Why was that? In 2008, the world plunged into a sudden economic crisis due to the collapse of the housing market in the US. This was the worst recession since the Great Depression in the 1930s. Its effect was global, and Egypt was no exception. The Egyptian economy shrank from 7% to a mere 4.5%. As a result, mega projects like GEM suffered greatly due to a lack of foreign investments and government support. Shortly afterwards, the Arab Spring started. A series of anti-government protests swept across the Arab world, including Egypt. The angry youth protested against President Hosni Mubarak, the same man who inaugurated GEM. Mubarak was ultimately replaced by the current military ruler, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Sisi had inherited an unstable country with a rapidly devaluing economy. Despite the tough times faced by the museum, the project still managed to survive. In our mid-2023, it was announced that construction was 100% complete, and the museum held a soft opening with limited areas accessible. The grand opening is scheduled for 2024 and will feature 5,000 artifacts from the tomb of King Tutankhamun, or King Tut for short. This tomb is famous because it's one of the very few that were discovered intact. Most of the discovered pharaohs' tombs have been looted over time, but not this one. Around 5,000 items ranging from clothing, jewels, weapons, furniture, cosmetics, food, and wine were found inside. Some of the most prized items like the king's golden mask, chariots, and his throne are all shifted for display at the Grand Egyptian Museum. The throne's colors have not faded over 3,000 years, which proves the high skill of the ancient Egyptian craftsmen. During the early 1900s, historians believed that all tombs were either discovered or looted by locals in the past. In fact, a previous site was misidentified and attributed as King Tut's tomb. That's why none of the historians were keen on finding his final resting. But that all changed with one man, Howard Carter. He was a British archaeologist who went against the prevailing opinion of experts. He dug for years, and his quest finally ended in 1922 with the discovery of Tut's tomb. The tomb was well concealed beneath 150,000 tons of rock, making it a challenge for anyone to find. The only hint that gave away the tomb's location was an underground staircase that led to the site. King Tut's body was found in a smaller room, preserved inside 3 coffins. All 3 of these coffins will be displayed at the Grand Egyptian Museum. GEM has recently introduced the Tutankhamun Immersive Experience. This tour includes a 30-minute digital show, followed by a 45-minute guided tour. Utilizing immersive cinema and powerful storytelling, visitors can feel as if they are inside King Tut's tomb. In addition to King Tut's artifacts, there are other exhibits worthy of attention. This includes a block statue of Queen Hatteferes, one of the earliest examples of its type, a black granite sculpture of Queen Nefertiti, a statue of King Senusret III, and a 4-ton pink granite sculpture of Amenhotep III, showing him seated next to the god Ra. With the museum's opening inching closer every day, the world is already turning its heads towards Egypt. In 2022, Egypt put on a spectacular show called the Royal Parade of the Pharaohs. 22 mummies were transferred from the Egyptian Museum to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Fustat. Each pharaoh was assigned a carriage made out of gold, and the procession passed through the streets of Cairo amid a lot of fanfare. This is the star power of the ancient Egypt civilization, and it is gearing up yet again with the powerful opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum. This museum will forge a connection between Egypt's past and present, reminding the world that Egypt was influential then and it is now. What are your thoughts on the museum? Mention them in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch up in the next video.